Well, joining me now from Paris, France, a Libyan academic and journalist, Professor Mustafa Fetouri. Professor, thanks for your time, and let's do a 10-year journey and explore the political climate of Libya. The aftermath of the civil war and the proliferation of armed groups gave birth to violence across the country. Is there really an end in sight to the political instability in Libya?
Well, thank you for having me, Sulaiman. And well, there is a political end, if you like, for the chaos we have been living in Libya for the last decade or so. But it's quite complicated because what happens most of the time is that including some of the United Nations mediation efforts. What happens usually is they put the cart before the horse instead of the other way around. So before figuring out what kind of solution you are proposing to settle the situation in the country, you really have to ask questions: what are the problems in the country first? And this has not been, this kind of question has neither been asked nor answered from the very beginning. If you recall, back in 2011, when the international Vows, so-called international community, approved the resolution 1973 authorizing the use of force in Libya, which was spearheaded by NATO, of course, first by France and then by the NATO countries, all of them, plus some regional countries, including Arab states, unfortunately. Nobody at the time, nobody stopped to ask the question, the very simple question: what shall we do with Libya if the regime goes, Gaddafi regime finishes? Of course, we knew from the beginning. I was all the time in Libya at that time, and everybody knew that Libya the regime will fall, and Gaddafi himself is not going anywhere, even before everything started. We know the man. He will not flee the country. He will not leave, and he died there. But the thing is, no one really asked that basic question: what to do with Libya and the next day? What's the scenario for the next day? And since nobody asked that question, everybody believed at the time that Libya, once Gaddafi is out of the way, Libya will become a paradise, just a flourishing democracy, without.
I'm afraid. Let me jump in here, Professor Mustafa. I think you've raised quite an important point. The entire world that was backing that particular onslaught on Libya didn't actually put into account what would become of Libya after the fall of Gaddafi. Now, the Prime Minister is there trying to see how much of a bringing together he can do. But he's also defied attempts by the parliament to replace him because it doesn't look like things are working the way Libyans would want. How do you see this playing out?
Well, first of all, there is no a ground, if you like, moral, let alone legal ground, to keep Mr. Dbeibah as a prime minister until the next election, whenever that happens. First, the man is a terrible choice from the start, and 4 of his ministers are in jail, so he shouldn't be there. He should have resigned at least a month ago, when they caught the first 2 ministers and sent them to jail because of the corruption charges against them. He is also implicated in several corruption charges. But the thing is, it's quite impossible really to defend somebody like him. But on the other hand, the parliament, especially the speaker, Mr. Agil Saleh, they are not pushing to get Mr. Dbeibah out of the way just because of the sake of Libya. No, not at all. They are doing it for themselves, just so they can stay a little bit longer in power and the parliament. The other thing is, Mr. Dbeibah seems to be quite lucky guy, really, because of two things, or the combination of two things, if you like. One is the inaction of both the international body, the UN in this case, which failed to investigate bribes he paid to some of the people who elected him in Tunisia and Geneva last year. And the bribes happened, the bribes offered and paid in the early session in February in Tunisia, actually in February last year, before they went to Geneva. And the other thing, the other part of the combination that make him lucky, really, is the fact that it's the timing this time, at this point, removing him is a quite risky thing to do. Why? Because he's backed by certain militias, which are quite powerful, quite armed, and they have a lot of money from the government, thanks to Mr. Dbeibah. So they are willing to defend him. That's one thing. The other thing is the other side. Once we have a new prime minister, which is very likely to happen tomorrow, Thursday, in the parliament session, and it's very likely that Mr. Bashar will come out as a designated prime minister. The thing is, it's very unlikely that those people, if they see Mr. Dbeibah insisting in staying in power, that they will step back to avoid what will happen. So that's out of the question, because they want to be the government in control in the country instead of him. So we could end up having two different governments, something that we already had in 2014 when we had the two different administrations.
No doubt, not a good time. Honestly, no doubt, not a good time. Looks like the country is going in circles. But before I let you go, Professor Mustafa, I want you to put on your journalism cap here now and help us to quickly look at the trials in Burkina Faso of the suspected killers of former revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara. His widow disagrees with the suspended sentence given to Colonel Jean-Pierre Palm, and that case has taken 30 years. Do you think the country or the continent is likely to get a fair hearing in this case?
No, I don't think so, really. I really doubt it. And one of the memories I have of Mr. Sankara, late Sankara, actually, I was a student when he first came to Libya. I was in high school, I think, last year or something. And Libya was one of the countries he visited when he first left, for a tour outside the country, outside Burkina Faso. I think it was the first year of him coming to power. And he was very close to Gaddafi, late Gaddafi, and he was counting towards support from Libya, most of which he got, actually. And one of the things I remember is that we were informed that he is coming to visit the student union, and he actually came over to the student union, and I was there among a group of students, something like 100 students, and we were already a week early. We were already told that he's coming, and we bought a car for him. We got donations, and we bought a car for him, quite a nice car. But of course, he did not take it with him back to Burkina Faso. Coming back to the court hearing, first of all, I don't think the court so far has been going in fairly and squarely, as to say it. Second of all, of course, after 30 years, so many things have changed. So many potential witnesses have died and passed away, and it's quite understandable that the family is not really happy with the proposed sentence so far. So I would think probably it will be much better if the Burkinabe government can manage to have an independent inquiry into Mr. Sankara's death before any legal trial takes place.
Well, I think I'd like to thank you for your time, Professor Mustafa, academic and journalist. Many thanks.
Thank you very much.